Oh, well, for me it was perfect. For me, it meant a lot because the last thing I did before the pandemic lockdown was a talk about William Blake in Sheffield Library. And we'd come up and it was about 3 days before the first lockdown and it was in the air. We knew something was happening, but we didn't really know what it was. And that trip to Sheffield was sort of my last hurrah before the big, long lockdown kicked in. And when Anwin suggested I come back and she puts on an event at her shop, it just felt like the perfect conclusion to this whole sort of lockdown period. To return to Sheffield would be, you know, personally, it would be a sense that we'd made it through, if not all of it, then at least the worst. Yeah, and it was perfect also because when my book William Blake versus the World came out, we couldn't do a book launch for it in the normal sense, and so we did what we could with a virtual online thing, and we did it with the British Library and a guy called John Fawcett at the British Library. It was really helpful. We put together something we were very proud of, and it had the poet Selena Godden, it had Kate Tempest, Neil Gaiman did a bit, I was interviewed by Robin Ince. We made an event of it as best we could in a sort of lockdown world. But it was virtual, and it was in London, and it was, you know, it was with the establishment. The British Library is very much the establishment, and that's not really right for Blake. So the idea to sort of also have an event which is much more about going back, you know, taking Blake back to the people where he belongs, and much more of a grassroots sort of thing, and much more people sort of coming together. It was exactly what was needed. It was the perfect sort of counterpoint to the thing we did. So, you know, I couldn't be happier. I think this is just great. What's really inspired me about this process is to take Blake out to people who often feel drawn to him in some way. They have a sense that he's on their side, he's a good guy, he's someone they want to know about. And yet they also feel that they don't understand him, that he's just too difficult or too strange, or not even sure they're allowed to sort of get into him sort of properly. It's a very common sense that the idea that like Blake is this sort of wonderful sort of gothic castle, and inside it's full of treasures and wonders, but no one's really sure how to get in. I've found to be able to, you know, go out and to talk to people and explain at least certain aspects of Blake as an introduction, as a way to get them feeling more confident about going in and you know, reading wider and reading his work and accepting him as sort of part of their lives. It's always rewarding and it's always worthwhile. It's always a good move to get more Blake in your life. Blake's always been there, really. He's always been around. He always manages to sort of bubble up into things. He's not a writer like Shakespeare, who's sort of handed down to you. And you know, there's the Royal Shakespeare, the theatre company, and there's the Globe on the South Bank, and you're taught it at school, and the BBC's running Shakespeare things, and it's very much like the establishment is handing you Shakespeare. Blake's not like that at all. He comes up through the cracks in the pavements almost. You find him in like video games and graffiti, a lot of graffiti, or comics and music, and he just finds a way to sort of creep into the culture and to attract your attention. But I always think I've just wanted to spend that time getting into his mind and trying to understand his perspective and understand his worldview and understand what it was he was trying to tell us. Because the thing with Blake is he's very much desperately trying to explain something very important to us, and we just, you know, need to do him the honour of listening. Okay. Here we go.